Thank you, Katie. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry that this is virtual. I far prefer talking to people than to a computer, but this is what we got right now. As I heard Katie reading the introduction, and I thought, I just wanted to say we are trying to do something that we think the USDA has failed at, which is to make transparent the relationship, the system between organic farmers and people, eaters who care about that. And but we didn't take this on out of boredom, and we didn't take it on actually because we were activists. I spent my adult life as a farmer, and I was most decidedly not an activist, except in the sense that I think most organic farmers became farmers and chose to be organic out of a sense of responsibility and out of a desire to change the world for the better. And in that way, most organic farmers that I know are activists. And that's as far as my activism went until about 2013, somewhere in there. I noticed that tomatoes were showing up in the market. I'm a tomato grower, so I grow in a greenhouse. I'm an unusual tomato grower, but I grow everything in a greenhouse in East Thetford, and I grow in the ground, which we now have to say as a clarifying note. It used to be that all organic farmers, of course, grew in the ground. And that's still true of all organic farmers, but there are people being certified as organic on a pretty massive scale who are not growing in the ground, they're growing hydroponically. Hydroponic means that the plant is in some kind of a container, some kind of a plastic container, and the roots are maybe in the air, maybe in water, maybe in shredded coconut husk, and all the nutrition for that plant comes as a liquid feed. That's what hydroponic means. And we started seeing tomatoes showing up in the marketplace where I wholesale that were beautiful, perfect looking, didn't taste very good, but they were cheap, and they were certified as organic. And they were coming from Mexico or Arizona. And I was really surprised by this, and I did some research because they kept coming. And I discovered that these, in fact, were grown hydroponically. And I was really surprised because we had gone through this years earlier with the USDA, and a decision had been made. So we thought that hydroponic could not be certified as organic. So one of the people attending this is my friend Davey Miskell, who was with me in all this. And together, we started a very informal activist group. I mean, we didn't think of ourselves even as a group. We started a petition. We started a couple petitions to try and bring attention to this because we figured that a mistake had been made. And a mistake had been made, but as it turned out, it was not that the USDA was ignorant of what was going on. It was that they had chosen to ignore the recommendation that it shouldn't be certified. And we started having meetings, and eventually we had a first rally in Vermont, and then we had a second rally also in Vermont. So this movement, which became national, was very had its roots entirely in Vermont. At the second rally, Senator Leahy came and spoke, standing on a wagon in a field. And a bunch of us marched from my farm to a neighboring farm, and we had, I think, 27 tractors going down the road and a couple hundred people. And it was a tremendous good fun. And a bunch of people got up and spoke about it, about an issue that we felt that nobody knew about. And this grew, and it came to a head after many. Actually, we had, I think, 17 rallies across the country, and actually one, I think, was in Costa Rica. So And the rallies were to protest that the USDA wasn't doing its job. The National Organic Program, which was created only for one purpose, and it was not to promote organic. It was to protect the integrity and the transparency of the organic brand. That was the job. The USDA has said a number of times they don't think organic is better than conventional, than chemical, but they accepted that it was their responsibility to protect that relationship between eaters and farmers, so that farmers could sell what they did without worrying about somebody else selling a fraudulent product and calling it organic, and that eaters could trust that they were getting, in fact, what they were paying for. And unfortunately, the USDA has failed in that very basic responsibility. As we went along, we discovered that their failure went far beyond just the issue of hydroponics and soilless growing. I discovered that the USDA was certifying industrial scale confinement livestock operations as organic, both in dairy and in meat. And the worst of all was in eggs. And there you have these massive chicken CAFOs. A CAFO is a CAFO, a concentrated animal feeding operation. And according to the USDA at this point, 3/4 of the eggs sold in America that are certified as organic are grown in these large industrial CAFOs. And if a reform that was approved had gone through, they would have been decertified. We're talking about a lot of money, over $1 billion just in the eggs. And we're talking about $1 billion just in the hydroponics. And we're talking about probably several $1 billion in the industrial CAFO milk production. So these are big numbers. And what we discovered, when I started doing this, I remember that somebody asked me, well, are you fighting against corporations? And I said, no, actually, there's just this one company growing these tomatoes. And, it's a big company, but it's a family business. It's not a multinational corporation. And my answer was wrong. We didn't realize even who we were up against. And we later discovered that actually the big player in hydroponics being certified as organic was Driscoll's, which is the big player in conventional berries. And they have over 70% of the organic berries in America, effectively making them a monopoly. And they should be broken up by antitrust, but antitrust isn't doing very well right now. So they had been lobbying behind the scenes, lobbying at the level of the Secretary of Agriculture, because if you're Driscoll's, you can call Tom Vilsack anytime you want. And we didn't even know this was going on. We literally didn't know that Driscoll's was growing hydroponically. It's out now. There are over 5,000 acres in California certified as organic that are hydroponic. These are big and very intensive production. This is not 5,000 acres of pasture land. This is 5,000 acres of very intensive production. So what we discovered is that the organic that we all knew and had participated in was not the organic that was in the stores. Some of the food in the stores was really organic, but a lot of it was not. I was especially sheltered from this because in Vermont, there are no CAFOs being certified as organic. There is no industrial egg operation being certified as organic. There are no hydroponics being certified as organic. And so if you were a Vermont farmer and you didn't get out much, and I didn't get out much, things looked like they were working very well. And I had to tell my old rabble-rousing friends, I think I was mistaken when I said we shouldn't let the USDA take over organic, because actually they've done a pretty good job. They did have an excellent definition in the Organic Food Production Act, the law. And the USDA appeared to be doing a good job, because the face of the USDA I saw was the Vermont Organic Farmers, a branch of NOFA Vermont. But as I got out and about, I realized things were not going so well for us. And that organic as a meaningful movement was facing tremendous opposition and challenge. And I think we see this played out in several ways. One of the ways is, I was talking with Katie before this, and she said that her focus in her PhD work is on agroecology. And agroecology is one of the movements that's coming up in the world. It was primarily a peasants' movement, as I know it. And so it was a lot about worker rights, and it was tying in social justice to what I would call traditional organic. But a lot of the impetus energy for that is the traditional organic in America was failing, right? Same thing with the regenerative agriculture movement. Regenerative agriculture was really a Midwestern response to organic, and it embraced most of the principles of organic, but not all. It did allow the use of some herbicides and even some chemical fertilizers. And it had no formal rules or regulations. It was a movement of farmers trying to find a better way to do it. But they were moving steadily and rapidly away from the heavy use of chemicals and embracing, cover cropping, green manuring, rotating of crops. And the thing that was unique for them from organic was that they were advocating no-till and no tillage, which is really an invention of herbicides. Nobody could figure out how you didn't till until you could just spray and kill everything on the ground. And so, that's an innovation. And I think it's something that requires a lot of conversation ongoing. I can't embrace something that's based on glyphosate as a solution. But the fact that it's exploded so quickly is partly because it's embraced by the chemical industry, and it's been embraced by all kinds of corporations now. McDonald's claims that they're regenerative, and Pepsi has their regenerative Doritos. And who's to stop them? Who's to say it isn't so, right? What does it mean? It's defined by everybody according to what they mean by it. But organic does have a legal definition. And our challenge is that the government is not following the law, and they're not doing their job. So after a particularly grim defeat, trying to reform the regulations and trying to reform the USDA, a bunch of us came back to Vermont and got together at the NOFA headquarters, and it was 30 farmers were there, and they decided total consensus that we were not going to accept it, and that we were going to do something to stand up and represent Real Organic. And there was debate and not agreement about whether we should break away from the USDA and start a new label, or whether we should create an add-on to the USDA label. And in the end, we decided to create an add-on label called the Real Organic Project. And that was in 2018, the beginning of, and in the 3.5 years since then, the Real Organic Project has grown. It very quickly became national rather than regional, because we had farmers pleading from the rest of the country. The famous phone call I got was from a friend, Emily Oakley in Oklahoma. And she said, Dave, Vermont can do this without Oklahoma, but Oklahoma can't do it without Vermont. We really need the support of a more mature movement, organic movement. And Vermont has a very mature organic movement. So we became a national organization. And we quickly put together, 3 boards, an executive board, an advisory board, and a standards board. And we are farmer-led always. Our executive board has 4 farmers and 1 consumer advocate, eater advocate, and that's about the ratio of the organization. Having said that, we know very much that we can't possibly have a successful movement if it isn't a coalition of farmers and eaters. It's not enough to have 1,000 farmers driving their tractors into Washington. This must be something that includes eaters and chefs and scientists and journalists and academics. So, we're trying to build that coalition. We're trying to bring organic back to the movement that it always was and always should be. But I think things got a bit lost as it became an industry and a brand. It became a marketing brand. And we have major players in the marketplace who see it as a brand. They see it as their brand. They often see it as just one of their brands. So General Mills, for example, is a pretty major player in the organic industry. And of course, their conventional brand is much bigger than their organic brand. The same is true of Driscoll's. Many companies, and they go, well, we have organic and we've got conventional, whatever you want, we got it. And okay, except they're not following the rules. And they're not only that, but they're starting to write the rules, right? Because they have a lot of influence, they have a lot of power. So we quickly are veering into issues not just of farming and nutrition and food integrity, but we're now sweeping into social justice and even democracy and certainly climate change. So all of these issues are clearly demonstrated in this struggle for what does organic mean and who gets to define it. And we just had a symposium, and Michael Pollan was one of my very favorite speakers in it. And he made very clear in his talk that the problem with monopoly is the concentration of power. It's not that they're going to gouge us and charge more for what they're selling. And the basic attitude of the government has been, as long as they keep it cheap, we're going to turn a blind eye to monopoly. But he pointed out that the Sherman Antitrust Act was not written to protect consumers from high prices. It was written to protect the republic, to protect democracy from an undue concentration of power. So when we got into this, for me, I thought we just had one rogue company that the USDA had missed. And as we got into it, I discovered that no, we were talking about actually subverting democracy, subverting the rules that are there to protect all of us. And the ways this is done are textbook. And they have tremendous influence, and they do greenwashing. Greenwashing was really invented. I mean, it's been practiced forever, but it was really refined when the oil industry was trying to prevent a climate movement from growing. And the way they did it is they said, you're right, we're with you. We want a seat at the table. And once they had a seat at the table, they said, you know what, you're right. And we have all these voluntary things that we're going to do because we need to change this. And what it really did was make it that nothing really got changed. And we're suffering the same challenges here in what does organic food mean? What does the organic movement mean? So I could talk for a long time, but I think I'm gonna wind down here, and we can throw this open to questions and answers, which I'd like. I will say that at this point, the Real Organic Project has 850 farms that they certify across the country. And our standards are pretty simple. Basically, you can't have confinement livestock and you can't have hydroponic production. And there's a lot to be said about why we would choose not to have hydroponic production. But the basic principle of organic farming is to feed the soil, not the plant. And what that means is we're going to feed the soil microbiome. We're going to feed all the life in the soil. And that process being active, an active living soil, so there's a lot of things in the soil besides the mineral elements. And that process of making sure that they are thriving and have an excellent diet, and their diet is basically organic matter, means that a whole lot of things start to happen that are positive for us, right? The soil doesn't wash away, and it doesn't flood when it rains, and there's more water in the soil when it gets drier, and the nutrition of the plants is different. The makeup of the plants is different. The nutrition of the animals eating the plants, whether that's us or livestock, is superior, right? And the climate effects are positive instead of negative. So a cow CAFO, where the cows are confined and you have this giant lagoon of manure, everything about that is wrong and bad from the point of view of everyone's benefit except the person who owns the CAFO. The people who work at the CAFO has a shitty life, and you know, the food is not as good, and it's terrible to live near there, and it's bad for the climate. So all of those things are dominoes falling against us. But if you go to a really good dairy farm in Vermont, like Guy Matt Chouanier or Abby Course, everything is happening is right. They're sequestering carbon, and the food that they're producing is superior, which gives better health to the people who eat it. And the people who work on those farms have a better life, are treated better. The money that goes to those farms for the milk is spread back in the community, and we have a healthy community, and we have good schools. Everything about it works. So that's what we want to get when we have Real Organic. That's our goal. And I think it's the goal of most of our customers. The tragedy is that often people are not getting what they want when they go to the store to buy organic. God bless them that they want to do the right thing. We need to make sure that they are getting what they mean to get. Okay, that's what the Real Organic Project's about. So maybe we'll see if anybody has a question or a comment, and if not, I'll just keep talking.